Hey everybody, it's me, Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie. On this episode of CD Junkie, I'm going to be talking about a band by the name of GENE Loves Jezebel. That's right, the band originally from Wales, fronted by twins Michael Aston and Jay Aston. Now, this is a really confusing one. Just follow along and you'll start getting the gist of why it can be confusing. But they're definitely a band to invest a lot of time in. I like to start these videos out by telling you how I got into the band. And that's basically, I had seen the album Promise come out and I saw that they were goth and I'm going, goth, no thank you. And so I passed on it. I didn't even hear it. The album Immigrant comes out and I'm thinking, oh, okay, yeah, it's got a couple interesting songs on it. It's produced by John Leckie, who produced a lot of great records at that time. But I'm not 100% sold on it. But then Discover came out. Then I heard the song Desire. I heard the song Heartache. And I said, okay, sign me up. I'm a fan. So I bought Discover. Then I went back and I bought Immigrant and Promise as well. Now, Promise was not as dark as I expected. But let's go through that right now, okay? We're going to start going through GENE Loves Jezebel career. It's going to get confusing, folks, so hang on. So, 1983, out comes The Promise. The original incarnation of the band, like I said, was Jay Aston and Michael Aston, twin brothers from Wales. And there are other folks in the band, including Ian Hudson and Julianne Regan, later of All About Eve, plays on the album as well. I'm not 100% sure if she was a member of the band at this time. This is the expanded 2 CD edition. This is not a happy album. It's not unhappy. It's post-punk meets goth, but it's also very unique because both Michael and Jay Aston have very unique vocals. Even in their pronunciation, the only people they sound like is each other. So when you hear one of the Astons sing, okay, that's GENE Loves Jezebel because of the way they pronunciate the words and stuff. It's not a Welsh accent. That's just the way they are. They're very unique and talented artists. And this is an album that gained enough interest to where they went back in the studio with producer John Leckie and they put out the album Immigrant. Now, this, of course, got a lot more attention. Now, this is the first album with bassist Pete Rizzo, who's still with the band today. And this came out in 1984, and this is a bonus edition. Now, this is definitely leaning more towards post-punk than goth. So don't expect it to be dark and dreary, but it's very creative, very unique. Even their songwriting was very unique. And this, in my opinion, is just a huge step forward from Promise. Other hardcore fans may think differently and prefer the goth stuff, but this is where they started stepping in the direction that I liked. Now, in my opinion, they left goth entirely behind by the time Discover came out. And Discover is a wonderful album. This is the album with Heartache. It's got Desire, also known as Desire Come and Get It, with I think it's a different version. And this has a bonus disc with a bunch of bonus tracks on it as well. This is absolutely a wonderful album. When I listen to this today, this is 37 years later, and it's still, when I hear certain songs, it's like, wow, this still sounds fresh and exciting. And they're much more rock. I'm not saying that they're, moving in a, New York Dolls or Stones direction, but, they're out there strutting on stage and they're rocking it up, but they're bringing that unique songwriting style with them. And it's really, really wonderful. Definitely an album to get into. If you've never heard them, this is a great gateway album for GENE Loves Jezebel. Now, don't worry, it's not confusing yet, but I will tell you, those 3 albums that I just talked about, they are also available in this box set. But they're single disc versions, and they do have a lot of bonus tracks, but you get more bonus tracks if you buy the 2 CD versions. So those 3 albums are right there. The next albums we're going to talk about are also in this box set and also have bonus tracks. They have not been released separately as expanded editions. But House of Dolls, this is really when they came to that great rock sound that they're kind of known for now. This is a great album where they, took Discover and then moved forward with that. And, some people say, oh, they went rock and roll or, they're hard rock. They're not. They're GENE Loves Jezebel, but each album is sort of slightly different from each other. And House of Dolls has things like 20 Kilohertz, Motion of Love, just a great album, really commercial sounding in a way as well. So, if you thought that Discover was, maybe a little eclectic, this is them more streamlining that sound. Still sounds unique. Now, this is when things get confusing. The twin brothers, Michael and Jay Aston, were at loggerheads, so Michael Aston leaves the band. Jay Aston continues Gene Loves Jezebel. Don't worry, that's not the confusing part. The confusing part comes in a little bit. Kiss of Life came out. This is the first album without Michael Aston, but it still has that core of Michael Aston, Peter Rizzo, and James Stevenson. I forgot to mention James Stevenson of Chelsea and Generation X. He joined the band on the Discover album, and he has been an important member of Gene Loves Jezebel ever since. And this album, it's not as commercial as House of Dolls, but it's got some really amazing songs. One of my favorite songs on this album is called Tangled Up in You. They released a CD single of it, and they added like this guitar part. They added it, and I think the single version is wonderful. And but you don't get that as a bonus track on this. But this and House of Dolls do have bonus tracks, and they come in that box set. So things still aren't confusing yet, folks. But Gene Loves Jezebel returned in 1993 with Heavenly Bodies, another great album that continues where Kiss of Life was. It's bringing in different influences, like Any Anxious Color off this album, which was one of my favorite Gene Loves Jezebel songs. This got this real gospel feel to it. And they're just a great rock and roll band by this time, and great hooks. Still very unique. That came out in 1993. Now, in 1993, Michael Aston, who I believe was living in America by this time, he formed a band called Edith Grove, and they put out their album. And very Gene Loves Jezebel sounding, still very unique, but Edith Grove is very much sounding like a Gene Loves Jezebel album. In 1995, Michael Aston put out a solo album called Why Me, Why This, Why Now? And that's a fine release there. He's a fine songwriter. But then finally, after that, after this short period, the two brothers reconciled, at least temporarily, and they put out a best of called From the Mouths of Babes. It actually featured, I believe, a few new recordings on there, but it's essentially a greatest hits of Gene Loves Jezebel. And then, problems arose, and they split up again. But James Stevenson, and Peter Rizzo, they continued. And this is kind of where things start getting confusing. Jay Aston put out a solo album called Unpopular Songs. Wonderful solo album. Highly recommended. That came out in 1998. The following year, Gene Loves Jezebel returned with the album Seven. And this is, of course, Jay Aston, James Stevenson, and Peter Rizzo. I'm going to call this Gene Loves Jezebel UK, and then I'll tell you about the other Gene Loves Jezebel in just a moment. But this album originally started as a full reunion Gene Loves Jezebel, but after it was recorded, I guess something happened, and then Michael's voice was wiped from the tapes and his songs were removed from the album. At least that's what I've read. And there is a version of that album somewhere out there. It might be a bootleg, might be semi-official, called the Doghouse Sessions. And that's basically this album with Michael Aston on it. But things aren't absolutely crazy yet. Not yet. But in 1999 also, Jay Aston put out an album called Jezebel. And this is a fine collection of songs, great rock songs. I don't know if this was demos or what, but at least my version is all in mono. I don't know anybody that releases albums in mono, with this rock. But, that could be a mistake from the manufacturer, or it could be just demos that he had, or he could have mixed it mono. But that is a Jay Aston album. Lots of great songs on that. Now let's get kooky. That same year, 1999, out comes Michael Aston's Gene Loves Jezebel. This is Gene Loves Jezebel US. I'm going to refer to them as US. And that is an album, lots of great songs on it. Initially, my attention was always with Jay Aston's Gene Loves Jezebel. I have to admit that originally I was following Jay Aston because that was three of the original members. I'm confusing myself now. That's Gene Loves Jezebel UK. So this album was Gene Loves Jezebel US. Then out comes the album Giving Up the Ghost by Gene Loves Jezebel US. And in the year 2001, out comes the album Exploding Girls by Gene Loves Jezebel US. But then you'd think, well, what happened to Gene Loves Jezebel UK? Oh, they're still around. Gene Loves Jezebel UK puts out the album The Thornfield Sessions. And this is a wonderful collection of acoustic versions. They've reimagined the songs acoustically, and Jay sounds great, and they're all playing together, James and Peter Rizzo, and also some great songs there. And that is called the Thornfield Sessions. It came out in 2003. In 2006, out comes a 2 CD set, that most fans should track down. It's called Anthology. And I believe it's also called Anthology Volume 1 and 2. But this has classic GENE Loves Jezebel recordings, and it also has solo Jay Aston, and it has some rarities on it too. So that's a great collection. It's a great gateway CD if you want to get a best of. But there are several other best ofs. I showed you From the Mouths of Babes, and I think there's a couple other ones. There's also live albums, but I don't really talk about live albums because I don't buy them. So I just talk about studio. So it's a 2 CD set by GENE Loves Jezebel UK. GENE Loves Jezebel US put out an album called Dead Sexy, which is a 2 CD collection featuring tracks from their albums like Love Lights Bleeding, Giving Up the Ghost, Exploding Girl, plus I think a track or two from Michael Aston's solo album. And that's a great collection there. Now, a CD I don't have came out in 2011. It's Jay Aston and Peter Rizzo from GENE Loves Jezebel UK, who put out an album under the name The Ugly Bugs. And I've never been able to track that CD down, unfortunately. But they did reissue it in 2021 digitally. So that I had to suffice and grab that. But the digital version has bonus tracks. I'm still searching for the CD. Hopefully one day I'll find it to add to my GENE Loves Jezebel collection. Now, the final CD in this stack of CDs is a great album called Dance Underwater. This came out in 2017. Thing about this, it's not the big, bold production of, Kiss of Life or House of Dolls or Discover or anything like that at all. It's more earthy, more warm, more intimate. So you're hearing these great songs by GENE Loves Jezebel UK. Now, it's not stripped down acoustic. I mean, it's rock. It adds a lot of charm and more depth to the album. So Dance Underwater is, I think, one of the best of the later GENE Loves Jezebel albums, both US and UK and regular version. Really, really fine album. Anyway, that is it. Maybe it's less confusing than I think it is, but I definitely recommend you to check out this band. In fact, I have put together a medley just featuring snippets of some of my favorite GENE Loves Jezebel songs that maybe I think would be great gateway songs for you to check them out. Listen to this medley. It's in random order. It makes no sense except they're all great songs. Give it a listen, and I'll see you on the other side.
She's charmed life. You've got the future in the palm of your hand, so never give in, never give in. Downhill both ways, baby, baby. Downhill both ways, baby, baby. 'Cause love keeps dragging me down, twisting my head, pushing me round. Love keeps dragging me down, twisting my head, pushing me round. I wanna dance underwater. I wanna dance underwater. Dance, dance, dance underwater.
Anyway, that's it. I hope it didn't confuse you too much with this video on Gene Loves Jezebel. I appreciate you hanging out. Remember to like, comment, share, subscribe to ring that bell for future notifications. And until the next time, remember me. I'm Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie.